Close your eyes for a second. I want you to picture the exact moment you stepped out of the family car after.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
an agonizingly long summer drive.
Oh, yeah, just the absolute worst.
Right. You know the feeling. Your legs were totally stiff, your skin is literally sticking to the seat upholstery, and you're just vibrating with that specific frantic energy of being a teenager finally let out of a cage.
Yeah, that pent-up tension.
Exactly. And then the smell hits you. Salt water, old wood, maybe, sunscreen and fried food from a boardwalk nearby.
Mhm.
And in that singular microscopic moment, you realize that for the next 3 months, you are completely untethered from your normal life. You can be whoever you want to be.
It's a total reset.
It is. Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's unpack this because today we are going on a very specific, profoundly nostalgic mission. We're sorting through a massive stack of materials, excerpts, notes, and analyses centered around Jenny Han's coming-of-age phenomenon, The Summer I Turned Pretty, along with some sneak peeks into its sequels and sibling works.
Which is such a rich text to dig into.
So rich. But I need to set the record straight right away. If you're coming into this thinking we're just talking about a breezy, superficial story involving a pretty beach house and a girl picking between a couple of cute boys, you really have to throw that assumption out the window right now.
Yeah, that is definitely not what this is.
Not at all. What we actually have here is a surgical look at the exact moment childhood ends and adulthood begins. It's a story driven entirely by the illusion and the eventual crushing weight of the perfect summer.
It really is a masterful deception by the author. I mean, you think you're reading a romance, but you're actually reading this intense psychological study on the architecture of nostalgia. What's fascinating here is the psychological framing of that exact feeling you just asked the listener to visualize.
Right, the car ride and the arrival.
Exactly. So in psychology and even in anthropology, we talk extensively about the concept of liminal spaces. A liminal space is, by definition, a threshold. It's the time between the what was and the next.
Like a waiting room almost.
Yes, exactly like a waiting room. It's a place of transition. And the Cousins Beach House in these texts isn't just a physical location made of wood and glass. It is a highly functioning psychological waiting room.
Oh, wow. I love that way of putting it.
Right. It is the designated sacred space where these characters go to shed their heavy, complicated winter selves and actively, consciously become the people they desperately want to be. It's a sanctuary literally designed for metamorphosis.
A psychological waiting room. I need to pause on that because it frames the opening of the story so perfectly. When you read the beginning of this text, the journey to the beach house isn't just a road trip. It reads like a religious pilgrimage.
It really does. The stakes feel incredibly high for just a drive.
They do. We start with our protagonist, Belly, trapped in the car with her older brother Stephen and her mother Laurel. And Han writes that they had been driving for about 7,000 years.
Which is just the most painfully accurate teenage measurement of time.
It's so visceral. 7,000 years. Stephen is behind the wheel, driving slower than their grandmother, or Grandma as they call her. And Laurel, the mom, is passed out in the back seat. But the text specifically describes her as sleeping but alert, like she could snap her eyes open and direct traffic at any given second.
Which is such an incredibly efficient, brilliant piece of characterization. The mother is essentially the guardian of the threshold to this liminal space. Even unconscious, she is entirely in control.
Yeah, mom is always in charge, even when she's asleep.
Exactly. And the tension inside that car is palpable, but it's a very specific, almost tragic kind of familial tension. You have Stephen, who is explicitly described as hating being outnumbered by the singing women in the car.
Oh, because of the divorce, right.
Right. The text notes that this is the thing that bothers him the absolute most about his parents being divorced. Being the lone guy, without his dad there to take his side. So even before we reach the purported magic of the beach house, the author is aggressively threading the reality of fractured family dynamics into the narrative. The real world, with all its disappointments, is sitting right in the car with them.
I'm so glad you brought up the divorce, because you can really feel Stephen's displaced anger simmering. I mean, he is literally swatting Belly's feet off his dashboard. He's telling her she's incompetent and will never get her driver's license.
Total classic older brother projection.
Oh, totally. He's throwing a massive fit when a guy in a wheelchair literally laps their car on the side of the road because Stephen is driving so agonizingly slowly. But then the shift happens. Belly starts fiddling with the radio dial, and she finds the local station, Q94.
The cat.
Yes. This is the catalyst. She hears Tom Petty's singing Free Fallin', and she says that listening to that specific station makes her know, deep inside her bones, that she is finally really there. She and her mom start belting out the lyrics, she's a good girl, crazy about Elvis, and Stephen is just looking at them with utter disgust.
Which just isolates him even more.
Right. But the sensory details absolutely explode off the page right here.
Yeah.
They roll into town, and Belly is spotting the landmarks. She sees Jimmy's Crab Shack, the putt-putt golf course, the surf shops. She rolls down the window. She says the air tastes right. It smells right.
The wind making her hair feel sticky.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a total overwhelming sensory immersion.
And pay close attention to her internal monologue during this arrival sequence because she articulates a very specific worldview. She says, "It was like coming home after you'd been gone a long, long time. It held a million promises of summer and of what just might be."
Right. It's not just a vacation for her.
Exactly. It is not a family vacation. This is a return to her primary identity. Belly's internal philosophy is stated without any ambiguity at all. Her whole life is measured in summers. She says, I don't really begin living until June.
So winter just, what doesn't count?
Winter, for her, literally does not exist on her emotional calendar.
I was trying to wrap my head around that, and the analogy that immediately came to mind is The Wizard of Oz. It's like Belly views her winter life, sitting by the radiator in history class, just waiting, existing in this dull, obligatory state, as living in black and white. It's Kansas.
That's a great comparison.
But Cousins Beach is the moment she steps out of the front door of the farmhouse, and the entire world just explodes into Technicolor. Suddenly, she is actually alive.
Right.
But I have to ask, is that healthy?
Well, no.
Right. Why do we, as humans, compartmentalize our identities so fiercely based on physical locations and seasons? It seems like a massive psychological red flag to view 9 months of your year as not living.
It is absolutely a red flag, but it's also a highly common developmental defense mechanism. We call it compartmentalized identity.
Okay. Compartmentalized identity. How does that work for a teen?
So for a teenager especially, the everyday environment, high school, the hometown, the primary household is completely fraught with expectations, strict rules, and rigid social hierarchies. Belly's winter self is dormant because it is psychologically safer to be dormant there.
Because if you don't play, you can't lose.
Precisely. You can't be hurt if you aren't fully engaged. But her summer self is her true, realized, idealized identity because the beach house is completely removed from the pressures of reality. However, you've hit on the exact inherent tragedy the author is setting up here.
The vulnerability of it.
Yes. By putting all her emotional eggs in this one summer basket, Belly is setting herself up for absolute unmitigated devastation. When you invest that heavily in a place remaining a perfect static sanctuary, you render yourself entirely unequipped to handle it when the magic of that house is inevitably compromised by real-world adult problems.
Setting yourself up for devastation. Wow. And you can literally feel the fragility of her worldview from the very first pages because she is so intensely possessive of this summer world.
Oh, fiercely possessive.
Yeah, she even thinks about the boys who live at the beach house. Conrad and Jeremiah Fisher, the sons of her mother's best friend. And she wonders what they look like in December. She tries to picture them wearing cranberry-colored scarves, and she imagines these faceless New England girls throwing snowballs with them, and it makes her furious.
She hates it.
She actively resents it. She feels like she owns their summer versions and that their winter versions belong to strangers. It feels like a betrayal to her that they even exist when she isn't looking at them.
It's a possessiveness born entirely of that compartmentalization we just talked about. Think about the logic. If her entire life only happens in June, July, and August, then the people who populate that time frame belong exclusively to that time frame.
They're like cast members at a theme park. They shouldn't exist outside the park.
Exactly. She cannot integrate the idea of them having full, complex, three-dimensional lives outside of her presence. It's a very childlike, egocentric view of the world, which is perfectly age-appropriate for a young teenager, but it brilliantly highlights exactly what is about to violently change this particular summer.
Because the irony is the house stayed exactly the same, but the protagonist fundamentally changed. She walks into her bedroom at the beach house, and she catalogs it. The faded calico wallpaper, the white bedroom set, this specific, delicate music box that plays the old-timey theme song from Romeo and Juliet.
All perfectly preserved.
Right. And she loves that it's all old and faded and exactly where she left it, but she is not where she left it. Which brings us to the core metamorphosis of the story, the physical transformation.
And the physical transformation is the engine that drives every single interpersonal conflict in the text moving forward.
Right, so let's set the scene of the arrival. They pull up to the house. The Fisher boys, Conrad and Jeremiah, are sitting on the porch. Belly gets out of the car, slings her bag over her shoulder. At first, they don't even notice her. It's the same old dynamic.
Just little Belly.
Yeah. But then, they actually look at her. And the text is incredibly specific here. Belly says Conrad gave her a quick glance over the way boys do at the mall. She explicitly notes that he had never in her entire life looked at her like that before.
The mall glance. It changes everything.
It really does. And Jeremiah does a literal cartoonish double take. He picks her up, spins her around, tells her she smells like BO.
Which is such a classic, panicky, brotherly deflection.
Totally. But then he stops, looks at her, cocks his head and says, "Something looks different about you, Belly."
And notice how she immediately deflects to the most practical, mundane explanation possible. She says, "What? I got contacts."
Right, blaming it on the eye doctor.
Yeah, because her best friend from home, Taylor, finally convinced her to ditch her glasses. She has physically matured, she has grown taller, she has shed the awkwardness of early adolescence. Her entire physical presence has changed. But she is still trying to hide behind the practical excuse of contact lenses.
This is where I see a major disconnect between the characters. I look at this moment like a massive software update. Belly 2.0 has just been installed. But Conrad and Jeremiah, they're still desperately trying to run her on their old childhood operating system.
They are just glitching out.
Completely glitching.
Wow.
They literally do not know how to process the visual information in front of them. So Jeremiah resorts to the "you smell like BO" joke to reestablish the sibling dynamic, and Conrad resorts to teasing her about her new freckles, reaching out and tapping her on the nose.
They're frantically trying to interact with Belly 1.0 because Belly 2.0 is too intimidating.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the software glitch is a brilliant analogy. But what we're witnessing in real time is a massive instantaneous shift in power dynamics. For 15 years, Belly was the annoying little sister. She was the one begging to be included, begging to be seen, just tagging along behind the older boys. Now, simply by virtue of her physical maturity, she forces the boys to recalibrate their entire relationship with her. She suddenly holds a power she doesn't fully understand yet.
Okay, I have to be completely honest here. Reading this initially, I wanted to push back on the entire premise. Look at the title. The Summer I Turned Pretty. On its face, it sounds incredibly superficial.
It does. It sounds like a 90s makeover movie.
Right. It sounds like a shallow teen movie where the girl takes off her glasses, shakes out her hair, and suddenly her life is perfect. Belly comes off almost vain, obsessing over mall glances and contacts. Convince me this isn't just a shallow, superficial trope. Is turning pretty actually about physical beauty? Or is it a metaphor for something deeper?
That is an excellent question, and it's a trap I think a lot of readers fall into. It is absolutely not just about aesthetics. It is fundamentally about agency. And that interpretation is confirmed by the matriarch of the house, Susanna, or Beck, as Belly's mother calls her.
Oh, the porch scene with Susanna?
Yes. When Susanna first sees Belly, she grabs her by the shoulders, holds her at arm's length, and makes this grand, absolute proclamation. She says, "You're so pretty. So pretty. You're going to have an amazing, amazing summer. It'll be a summer you'll never forget."
Susanna basically speaks in absolutes.
She does. She acts as the fairy godmother, casting a spell over the protagonist. And Belly realizes that for the first time in her life, she feels it. She says, "Every summer up to this one, I believed it'd be different. And that summer, it finally was. I was."
So feeling pretty in the psychological context of this story is feeling powerful.
Exactly. It's feeling like you finally exist in the narrative as a main character rather than a background prop or a sidekick. It is the sudden, dizzying realization that you can affect the people around you.
But the anxiety of that newfound power is so visceral. Immediately after that interaction on the porch, Belly runs straight up to her faded calico room. She shuts the door, and what is the very first thing she does?
She grabs the stuffed bear.
Yes, she grabs her childhood stuffed polar bear, Junior Mint. She hugs him tight to her chest because her heart is beating so violently against her ribs she can actually hear it. She is actively seeking the comfort of her childhood artifact because the reality of being perceived as a woman by these boys is completely overwhelming.
It's terrifying. She actually has this thought. They had looked at me like I was a real girl, not just somebody's little sister.
Exactly. The stuffed polar bear is her grounding mechanism. It represents the safety she is leaving behind. She wanted to be seen, yes, she craved it. But being perceived as a young woman suddenly and irreversibly complicates the innocent familial bond she shared with the Fisher boys.
The dynamic is broken.
The safety of the liminal space is already cracking on day one. The simplicity of childhood evaporated the exact second Conrad gave her that maw glance. There is no going back to the way things were, and her nervous system knows it.
And because she is now wielding this new, unpredictable power, it inevitably leads to her testing it out. It's like she's been handed the keys to a sports car, and she immediately wants to see how fast it can go. Which brings us to the three archetypes of first love presented in this text: Jeremiah, Cam, and Conrad.
The famous love triangle +1.
Right. I frame this as the ultimate coming-of-age taste test. Jeremiah is the comfort food. Cam is the trendy new appetizer. But Conrad is the complicated, spicy main course Belly has been craving her entire life.
I love that. The taste test analogy works incredibly well because each of these boys represents a completely different psychological and developmental need for Belly at this exact stage in her life.
Okay, let's look at Jeremiah first. The comfort food. He is sunny, he's the golden retriever best friend, he still has rosy cheeks. And there's this great detail where we learn that when he was little, he had these platinum blonde curls, and Conrad used to trick him into eating sandwich crusts by telling him it would make his hair curly just so Conrad could eat the crusts himself.
Poor Jeremiah. So gullible.
Right, but he's proud of his football scars. He dunks Belly in the pool, he's physical, he's loud, and most importantly, he's safe.
Jeremiah is safe, but we really cannot overlook that he is also intensely protective and territorial. He masks his deeper, shifting feelings for Belly with humor and physical horseplay. But when a foreign threat is introduced into his ecosystem, his reaction is visceral and aggressive.
And enter the threat. Cam Cameron, the trendy appetizer. Cam is the designated summer boyfriend. He drives this beat-up navy blue car. He brings her picnic sandwiches made of avocado and sprouts with homemade mayonnaise.
Very specific vibe.
Very. He's attentive. And most importantly, he validates Belly's new maturity. He doesn't have the baggage of knowing Belly 1.0.
Yeah.
He only knows the Belly who wears contacts and gets mall glances.
Cam serves a crucial developmental role. In psychological terms, we look at a character like Cam as a transitional object.
Wait, can you explain that like training wheels on a bike?
Precisely like training wheels. A transitional object provides comfort and security while a person moves from one stage of development to another. Cam is a safe space for Belly to practice being a girlfriend.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. She can test out her romantic agency, her conversational skills, her boundaries with a boy who is genuinely kind, entirely eager, and completely separated from the heavy, suffocating history of the cousin's beach house. Cam is a low-stakes environment for high-stakes emotional learning.
So why does she drop him?
She eventually lets him go, not because he did anything wrong, but because she outgrows the need for the training wheels. He doesn't have the history of the house attached to him, so he can never truly be the main event.
Which brings us to the complicated, spicy main course, Conrad. Conrad is the older, dark, brooding, unattainable brother. He plays the guitar. He has this smirky mouth. And Belly admits right in the text that smirky mouths make you want to kiss them, to smooth them out and kiss the smirkiness away.
He wants to fix him.
Exactly. She says, you want to control it somehow. Make it yours. I read that and thought, wow, that is the most articulate, terrifyingly accurate description of why teenage girls are drawn to toxic bad boys I have ever read.
It is a brilliant deconstruction of the bad boy versus nice guy trope. Conrad is withholding. And human nature, particularly teenage human nature, dictates that when an authority figure or a desired object withholds affection, we desperately want to earn it.
We want to be the one who changes their mind.
Exactly. We want to be the exception to their rule. Belly's stated desire to smooth out his smirk is the textbook desire to be the one to fix the brooding hero. It's the illusion of control. But this summer, Conrad is pulling away more than ever before. He's smoking cigarettes. He quit the prestigious, highly visible lifeguard job at the country club to bus tables in the back of a seafood buffet. He's erratic, moody, and entirely walled off.
So Belly has these three wildly different dynamics swirling around her. And this is where I got really frustrated with her character, actually. Why does she use Cam to make Conrad jealous?
Because she knows exactly what she's doing.
She absolutely does it on purpose. There's a scene where she's sitting on the patio with Conrad, Jeremiah, and this annoying neighbor kid named Clay Bertolet. Clay asks if she has a boyfriend, and she blatantly lies. She says yes, she has a serious boyfriend, and she specifically looks right at Conrad when she says it.
Total power play.
It is. Your internal thought is, see, I was saying I'm not a stupid 12-year-old girl with a crush anymore. I'm a real person with an actual boyfriend.
Yeah.
Then, later, when she actually goes to a party with Cam, she essentially parades him in front of the house, forcing Conrad and Jeremiah to watch her leave. Why is she playing these manipulative games?
Well, because she is still learning how to wield the power of being pretty. Think about it. When you feel utterly powerless for 15 years and suddenly you discover you have a weapon, in this case, desirability, you don't necessarily wield it with precision or grace.
You just swing it around and hope it hits something.
Precisely. She swings it wildly. She is using Cam and the lie about Clay as emotional leverage. She wants to force Conrad into an emotional reaction. She wants to break through his stoicism and prove that she matters to him.
Does it work?
Interestingly, look at how the boys react to her wielding this power. Jeremiah is the one who reacts territorially. When the boys find out she's going to a party with Cam, Jeremiah grinds his fist into his hand and literally threatens to make Cam's ass grass if he touches her.
Ass grass. That is so funny.
Right. But Conrad, on the other hand, plays it agonizingly cool. He just says he'll tag along to the party because he likes pool. He refuses to give her the satisfaction of a reaction.
Oh my gosh, the ass grass comment. It's so aggressively, stereotypically teenage boy. It's hilarious, but also shows how on edge everyone is.
Yeah.
And you feel that tension perfectly in the country club pool scene, too. Belly goes to visit Jeremiah while he's lifeguarding. She meets his co-lifeguard, Yoli, who has this incredibly firm, business-like handshake.
Yoli is not messing around.
No. And Belly is just laying on her towel, listening to music, soaking in the sun, reveling in the fact that she is part of their older, cooler world now. And the adults even get in on this weird, competitive, primal dynamic.
Oh, the mini-golf scene.
Yes. Mr. Fisher, the boy's dad, takes them all to the putt-putt golf course and bets them $20 for the first hole-in-one. He actively pits the boys against each other for a cash prize.
The introduction of Mr. Fisher in that scene is vital. It's a subtle reminder that these boys do not exist in a vacuum. They are being shaped by an adult world, specifically a paternal figure that explicitly values competition, stoicism, and dominance. It contextualizes their behavior towards Belly and each other.
That makes a lot of sense. They're performing for him, too.
But if we want to truly understand Belly's coming of age, we have to recognize that romance and male attention are only half the ecosystem. The real architects of the summer fantasy are the women. We have to look at the intense, often fraught female relationships that anchor the entire story.
Yes, because the house is really run by the mothers, Susanna and Laurel. And their friendship is legendary. Within the lore of the families, they've known each other since they were 9 years old. They are literal blood sisters with identical heart-shaped scars on their wrists to prove it. But their personalities couldn't be more diametrically opposed.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of Belly's development, Susanna and Laurel represent a stark dichotomy of womanhood. They are two completely different blueprints for how to exist in the world.
Like the fantasy versus the reality.
Exactly. Susanna is the romanticized ideal. She has fresh flowers in every room. She drinks wine in the afternoon. She paints portraits. She speaks in grand, sweeping destinies. She is the one who tells Belly she is unequivocally destined for one of her boys. Susanna is the fantasy of what a woman can be.
And Laurel.
Laurel, Belly's mother, is the grounded, practical, sometimes harsh reality. Laurel has a handshake as firm as a man's. She demands chores be done. She doesn't tolerate nonsense. She's the anchor. Belly aspires to be Susanna, but she is raised by Laurel.
It's so painfully true. When Susanna gives a compliment, Belly says it feels like sunshine warming your skin. When Laurel says they miss Belly around the house, Belly interprets it as an annoying recrimination. A demand for her to do the dishes.
Because teenagers only want the sunshine, not the chores.
Naturally. But this complex mother-daughter dynamic is peaceful compared to the absolute grenade that gets thrown into the beach house halfway through the summer. And her name is Taylor Jewell, Belly's best friend from home.
Taylor's arrival is a fascinating, brutal study in the toxicity and authenticity of teenage female friendship.
It really is. I picture Taylor bringing her school hierarchy energy to Cousins Beach, like an invasive species being introduced into a perfectly balanced, delicate ecosystem. It disrupts everything.
Oh, she brings the chaos immediately.
She brings miracle bras. She brings sun in for her hair. She packs 3 different outfits for a casual family dinner.
Yeah.
She explicitly tells Belly she is targeting Conrad, saying, I am going to make that boy's head spin. And she's completely oblivious, or perhaps entirely uncaring, about the sacredness of the beach house dynamic.
But we have to analyze why Belly brought her into this sacred space in the first place. Because Belly admits early on that she knew inviting Taylor was a mistake.
Wait, I completely agree, and I want to push back on the idea that Belly is an innocent victim of Taylor's invasion. Belly explicitly admits in her internal monologue that back home during the winter, Taylor was always the pretty one, and Belly was the funny one, or the smart one.
So she has an ulterior motive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Belly brought Taylor to the beach house to prove a point. She brought her best friend as a prop. She wanted to show Taylor, see, I'm a pretty one too now. Look at these older boys who look at me. Look at my power. She used her best friend to feed her own newly inflated ego.
It's a deeply flawed, highly insecure, very human teenage calculation. Belly wants to exhibit her new power in front of an audience that knows her winter self. She wants a witness to her metamorphosis.
And it goes terribly wrong.
It backfires spectacularly because Taylor refuses to play the role of the impressed, subservient audience. Instead, Taylor actively competes for the spotlight, and this competitive friction leads to the ultimate betrayal.
The betrayal. Okay, let's break this down. Belly wakes up early one morning to go watch the sunrise. She heads down to the beach, fully expecting to find Taylor and Jeremiah, because Taylor had been flirting heavily with Jeremiah for days.
Right, everyone saw that coming.
But she sees two figures down by the water, kissing. And it's not Jeremiah, it is Stephen, Belly's own brother.
The ultimate plot twist.
And Han writes this incredible passage where Belly says it was just like a movie with a surprise ending, where everything suddenly clicks into place. She says, suddenly my life had become the usual suspects. And Taylor was Keyser Söze.
The Keyser Söze analogy is brilliant for a teenage perspective. For those who haven't seen the film, it means realizing that the person you thought was just a regular, predictable player in the story was actually the criminal mastermind manipulating everything from the shadows the entire time.
So she was using Stephen all along.
Yes. And Belly's realization forces her to accept a very painful truth. Childhood friendships do not always survive the transition to adulthood intact. The text explicitly notes that they remain friends after the summer, but not like we used to be. You cannot unsee the betrayal. It's a harsh, permanent lesson in boundaries and the limits of loyalty.
It's hard to throw away history, Belly says. It was like you were throwing away a part of yourself. That line hit me so hard. Because it's true. But honestly, the drama with Taylor, the kissing on the beach, the miracle bras, the jealousy over the boys, it's all just a warm-up.
It really is just kid stuff.
It's kid stuff compared to what happens next, because the structural integrity of the perfect summer illusion is about to suffer a catastrophic failure.
Yes. The liminal space finally collapses under the weight of the real world.
The revelation drops in two distinct, devastating parts. First, Conrad casually mentions to Belly and Jeremiah that his parents, Mr. Fisher and Susanna, are getting a divorce.
Just drops it like it's nothing.
Belly is completely shocked. She thought they were insanely in love. Her only reference point is remembering Mr. Fisher bringing almond croissants and lavender chocolate to the house. She thinks romance fixes everything.
Because she's naive.
Right, but Conrad just shrugs it off. And then the deeper, darker truth emerges. The real reason for the tension. Susanna is sick. It's heavily implied to be terminal cancer. And the crucial, world-shattering piece of information for Belly is that Conrad and Jeremiah already knew.
So, what does this all mean for the narrative? It forces the reader and Belly to completely recontextualize every single interaction that has happened over the last 2 months.
Everything makes sense now.
Suddenly, Conrad's dark, erratic behavior, the smoking, the withdrawing, the quitting his prestigious lifeguard job, the brooding on the porch, it isn't just a teenage boy trying to be a cool, mysterious bad boy to impress a girl.
It's trauma.
It is profound anticipatory grief.
Let's translate that. Anticipatory grief. So it's like bracing for a car crash in slow motion. You can see the wall coming, you haven't hit it yet, but your body's already tense, your adrenaline is spiking, and you're lashing out at the passengers in the car because you are absolutely terrified and completely powerless to stop the car.
That is a perfect translation of the psychological state. When a loved one is terminally ill, the grieving process begins long before the actual physical death. Your brain starts mourning the future.
So Conrad is just exploding quietly.
Conrad is lashing out because he is utterly helpless. He is watching the foundation of his world crumble, and he is trapped in this beach house where his mother is desperately trying to enforce a regime of denial. He resents Belly's innocence. Remember earlier in the text when he snaps at her and says, "You're such a kid."
Oh, wow.
It isn't a superficial insult about her maturity or her context. It's a projection of his own agonizing burden. He wishes he could still be a kid. He resents her for being allowed to be ignorant of his mother's impending death while he has to carry the secret.
I really want you, listening right now, to stop and think about this for a second. Think about the exact moment in your own life when you realized your parents or the adults you idolized were flawed, vulnerable, mortal humans. When you realized they couldn't fix everything.
It changes you forever.
It is an earth-shattering paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And Belly has to experience this realization at the exact microscopic moment she is trying to figure out her own newly minted adult identity. It's too much for one person to process.
And we have to look at Susanna's role in creating this pressure cooker. Susanna is practicing the ultimate form of preserving the illusion. She insists on one last perfect summer. She forces everyone into this play where nothing is wrong.
The dinner scene.
Yes, there is a haunting dinner scene that perfectly encapsulates this. She finally speaks about her mortality, but only obliquely, wrapped in vanity. She says, "If and when I go off slow dancing in the ever after, I don't want to look like I've been stuck in a hospital room. I want to be as tan as Belly."
And Laurel, the practical, grounded, fiercely protective mother, replies with the most devastating line in the book. She says, "Beck, if you want to be as tan as Belly, you'll need more time. That's not something you can achieve in one summer. My girl wasn't born tan. It takes years, and you're not ready yet."
Laurel just refusing to let her go.
And the text follows that dialogue with Belly's internal thought. Susanna wasn't ready yet. None of us were. It is absolutely gut-wrenching. Laurel is using the mundane metaphor of a summer suntan to literally beg her best friend not to die.
It is masterful writing by Jenny Han. It flawlessly blends the superficial aesthetic elements of a teenage beach summer with the profound, inescapable reality of human mortality. And this collision of romance and grief culminates at the very end of the summer.
A final night.
Right. Belly slips notes under the boys' doors asking for a final midnight swim. She wants one last moment of the old magic. She wants to pretend, just for an hour, that everything is okay. But it rains.
It pours, and she and Conrad are left alone on the beach in the pouring rain. And she reaches out and touches the back of his neck. She wants to pour the sadness out of him. She kisses him, and he kisses her back. And her internal thought during this climax is so incredibly poignant. She thinks, Susanna was dying, and I was kissing Conrad.
Romance and grief become inextricably linked in her psyche at that exact moment. She is kissing the boy she has loved her whole life, finally achieving the romantic climax she has dreamed of for 15 years, but the victory is entirely overshadowed by the tragedy of his mother's death.
The bubble bursts.
Exactly. The liminal space of the beach house can no longer protect them. The real world has breached the walls. The summer inevitably ends, but the emotional fallout of that rainstorm is permanent.
Which catapults us into the harsh reality of after. And this is where we look at the preview provided for the sequel. It's not summer without you. And let me tell you, the whiplash is brutal. It's like being at a magical, deeply immersive theater performance. You're completely swept up in the lights, the music, the drama of the story.
Right, you're fully in it.
And then suddenly, mid-scene, the house lights flip on, blindingly bright, and the ushers push you out the back door, and you're just standing in a dirty gray parking lot holding a playbill, squinting in the sun. That is what opening the second book feels like.
This raises an important question about how sequels function when the core premise of the original text is completely destroyed. Han is actively subverting the foundational premise of the first book.
Exactly. It is July 2nd. Belly is not at Cousins Beach. She is laying by Marcy Yu's suburban backyard pool back home. It's 87 degrees. She says she feels sunsick. Susanna is gone. She has passed away. And Belly literally calls this era of her life after.
In book 1, summer was the only time Belly lived. Now, on July 2nd, the very beginning of the season she used to worship, she is actively counting down the days until it is over.
A complete 180.
The summer self has been forcibly evicted from its sanctuary because the physical location of Cousins Beach is now tied to an unbearable amount of pain. The waiting room is closed.
She mentions Justin Edelbrook's July 1st blowout party. For years, she missed it because she was at Cousins, and she never cared. It was a badge of honor to miss it. Now she is home for it, and she is mourning. She says, I thought I'd be in Cousins every summer of my life.
And she has to face Taylor there.
Right. And Taylor, of course, is there giving terrible, albeit well-intentioned, advice. Taylor tells Belly she just needs to get over Conrad, that getting your heart broken is just a rite of passage.
Which demonstrates Taylor's fundamental misunderstanding of Belly's grief. Taylor thinks Belly is just mourning a breakup. But Belly realizes that Conrad wasn't just a first love. He, Jeremiah, and Susanna are an entwined, inseparable entity.
You can't uncouple them.
Belly says, if I forgot Conrad, if I evicted him from my heart, it would be like doing those things to Susanna. She cannot separate the romantic loss of the boy from the maternal loss of the woman. She must now do the incredibly difficult, painful work of integrating her cousin's beach identity with her real-world winter identity, because she has no sanctuary left to escape to. She has to grow up.
It's a staggering emotional journey. To summarize what we've unpacked today, Jenny Han has crafted a masterful, deceptively deep look at how the places we love are actually just vessels for the people we love. And that growing up ultimately means learning how to carry those places inside us when we can no longer physically visit them.
It's a beautifully harsh reality.
It is. It makes you really reflect on how you measure your own summers and what happens when the calendar keeps turning, but the people you spent those summers with are gone.
It is the painful, entirely necessary transition from living in a liminal space to living in reality. You cannot stay in the waiting room forever.
You can't. And I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought. In the materials we looked at today, there was also a brief preview of another Jenny Han book, To All the Boys I've Loved Before.
Oh, Laura Jean's story.
Yes. In that preview, the protagonist, Laura Jean, talks about keeping love letters. She's written in a teal vintage hat box. She saves them. They are her prized possessions, tucked away safely where nothing can alter them.
Completely preserved in time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want you to mull this over. Are Belly's memories of Cousins Beach essentially the same thing as Laura Jean's teal hat box? Is Belly actually truly in love with Conrad Fisher, the real, flawed, grieving, difficult boy? Or has she simply placed him in a mental hat box labeled Perfect Childhood Summer? And by kissing him on that beach in the rain, is she just desperately, hopelessly trying to put the lid back on a box that has already burst completely open?
That is the essential question of nostalgia. Are we loving the person as they are now, or are we loving the safe, uncomplicated time they represent?
Think about what artifacts or memories or people you're keeping in your own metaphorical hat boxes. And as you do, remember that feeling of being suspended in time, standing in that one place from your childhood. The air tastes right, the wind is sticky, but eventually you always have to drive home. Thanks for diving deep with us today.